News 24 says they've been able to unearth forensic reports and medical evaluations of several victims of sexual assault allegedly committed by a man suspected of preying on children at a play school in Melkbosstrand in Cape Town. Now, please, a word of warning for our viewers. The following story contains graphic details about child abuse, and it may be upsetting. The Melkbosstrand child rape story outlines horrific events of a man who is alleged to have abducted and raped toddlers from his wife's creche. According to News 24, a 3-month investigation shows that the incidents of abuse date as far back as 1983. Although investigations are ongoing, the couple has not been charged and, in fact, have denied any wrongdoing. One of the co-authors of the story is Deon Wigget, who joins us now in studio, in fact, to tell us more about this incredibly disturbing story. Deon, it's great to have you with us in studio, despite the topic. And where does one begin with a story like this one? Let's start with how you found the story.
Morning, Michelle. Thank you for having me. As with most stories, it started off with a tip-off. A parent got in touch with me and said, do you know that this thing is going on? There's a man of 68 or 69 now who has been doing all of the following things. So, you know, we started on that shred of story, and then you make a second phone call, and then you make a third, and before you know it, your desk is covered with reports of how children of 2 years old were raped allegedly by the owner of the Bubble and Crubble Play School in Melkbosstrand near Cape Town, which is still doing brisk business this morning.
In fact, you're in conversation while we're doing this interview with you here in studio with one of your reporters who's actually telling you via WhatsApp that the play school is operational. People are still dropping their children as we speak this morning.
My colleague Tammy Peterson from News 24 is on the scene. People are dropping off their children as per usual. Apparently there was a slight decline on Monday after the story broke on Friday, but this morning it appears to be business as usual, despite our reporting allegations, credible allegations, founded allegations based on psychologists' reports, medical reports, that at least 7 toddlers were allegedly raped after being abducted from this play school. And I really do not understand how you, in the face of all of this evidence, this morning at just past 8:15, are dropping off your child at a play school where the most hair-raising alleged events have happened. I mean, it does boggle my mind, and I wonder how those parents are getting through their morning.
You and me both. Now, I want to talk to you about the kind of evidence that you unearthed insofar as the abuse is concerned. And I'm going to reiterate to our viewers that warning, that the details that you are going to give us now, Deon, does contain graphic details of the alleged abuse of children as young as 2 years old. What did you find?
According to an overwhelming amount of evidence in our possession, the toddlers of age between 2 and 5, boys and girls, were removed from Bubble and Crubble during the school's nap time. They were taken to the alleged perpetrator's home, where he would, rape them with his fingers and force them to do stuff to him. And then he would drop them off back at Bubble and Crubble with a 3-year-old's vocabulary to talk about the terror. But I think what gets me the most viscerally about this story, and what gets many people, is the lawnmower. After he's done what he wanted to do, he allegedly holds the child's hand above a lawnmower, and then he switches on the machine and tells the child what will happen to their hands and their bodies and their parents' hands and bodies, courtesy of the lawnmower, if they ever happened to tell anybody what happened. And that is a particular little bloodthirsty detail that I mean, we struggle to imagine what it's like raping a toddler. But putting a toddler's hand over a lawnmower, I mean, there are other ways of guaranteeing or of attaining a child's secrecy. But that's just gratuitous terror.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've got your report here in front of me, and it details stories like the one that you've just outlined to us, but it also details the impact, according to psychologists, that these attacks have had on the children. In the months after, in the years after, excessive clinginess to their parents, aggression, sexual awareness, much more advanced than the age that these children are. The devastation can't be put into a box of just how this has affected the lives of these children and their families.
I beg your pardon.
You can grab your water, Deon. I know it's on the floor.
Any form of sexual abuse will mess you up. The older you are, the more you are able to deal with it. Mm-hmm. But what sex abuse does is it instantly alienates you from your own body. You learn at that age that you are not safe in your own body. Sure. And that wherever you take your body is the place where you won't be safe, which is quite the life sentence. So we see hypersexualization of many survivors of abuse, problems with authority, problems with boundaries. So it's a phenomenally large challenge, and if people who did these things were not psychopaths, if they could understand the actions or cared about the actions, I mean, like, you know, is it really that special to put your finger in a 2-year-old girl's vagina to sentence her to a life of anxiety and fear and problems? You can survive sexual assault. You can learn to thrive after sexual assault. But you can also do those things without being sexually assaulted. A friend of mine always says 10 out of 10 rape victims would not recommend it.
Now, you're talking about surviving sexual assault because you write this story from a particular lens. Your book, My Only Story, details your own rape as a young boy.
Well, compared to the toddlers of Bubble and Crubble, I was practically ancient. I was 17 when I was raped by Willem Breitenbach, a journalist from News24. I get not to say allegedly raped by Willem Breitenbach because I was there. I mean, there's nothing alleged about any of it. But in the way of many of these things, people tend to forget what happened to them as a teenager or as a child. You put it somewhere in a shameful corner of your brain that you dare not explore. So, to me, I only realized what happened after my father died when I was 37, 5 years ago. But it has really spurned me into quite a mission to expose. I mean, I started off by exposing the man who abused me, but I quite enjoy exposing the rest of them as well.
And at a great cost to you as well, I'm sure. I want to talk to you about, because I see you having difficulty saying alleged perpetrator, because News24 has taken the decision to name the perpetrator in the Melkbosstrand story that we are talking about this morning. Why did you take that decision, despite no charges being laid by the NPA?
We are saying that he is the alleged perpetrator, and him and his wife did try to get an interdict against us from the Cape High Court before publication. Yeah. We get to identify him in the public interest. It is lawful defamation in the public interest. We are not reporting on a criminal trial or somebody who's been arrested, somebody who's appearing in court. According to South Africa's defamation law, an excellent law at that, if something is important for the public to understand, and we have taken all the reasonable steps to ensure the veracity and the accuracy of what we are reporting, then people do need to know this. None of us at News24 could think of a story that is more in the public interest than telling parents that they are dropping their children off at a play school where they may very well be raped. I guess that's what makes it so grating to me that people in Melkbosstrand, as we speak, are stopping their cars in front of Bubble and Crumble Play School on the grounds of the Hervormde Church, who are meeting on this Saturday to decide the fate of their tenant. Because the Hervormde Church have been intensely relaxed, it would appear, to have they've known about these allegations since 2011, and they found no need to evict Bubble and Crumble from the church's own grounds. This is the Hervormde Church. This is one of Afrikaans' 3 sister churches. It is not some obscure band of, well, I think we'll be able to see in the days and week ahead whether there is any moral or any spine whatsoever in the Hervormde Church.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, part of what I spoke about in the intro was the history of this case. It's alleged that the suspect began doing this to children as far back as 1983. In one instance, you wrote the article that there was a doctor who examined the child who was raped in May of 2011. He apparently signed off that the child rapist needs to be urgently confined, with so much evidence gathered throughout the years. You and I have spoken about the evidence in horrific graphic detail. How is this case not moved forward?
It beggars the mind. So the National Prosecuting Authority in the Cape decided in 2011 and then again in 2018, when new allegations surfaced, not to prosecute because of unreliable toddlers. Because, you know, toddlers, I don't know if the appearance is that these toddlers somehow were in a plot to make these things up. I mean, you know how toddlers can conspire. The inaction and the hand-wringing from the National Prosecuting Authority, I'm not somebody who goes around blasting the government. We are a middle-income country with very difficult work to do. But this is so clear-cut. The amount of evidence is so overwhelming. When we responded to the alleged perpetrator's application to the High Court to interdict our publication, we submitted an answering affidavit with annexures of almost 400 pages. We are talking about 400 pages of proof. What more do the parents of Melkbosstrand want? Yeah,
so many questions that still need to be answered. Deon, I'm going to thank you for your time this morning. Thank you for coming in, and thank you for the incredible work that you and the team at News 24 have done in unearthing what's unfolding in Melkbosstrand. Devastating rape story detailing the horrific events of a man using his wife's creche to abduct and allegedly rape toddlers as young as the age of 2. Deon, thanks for coming into studio.
Thank you, Michelle.